That is the problem now. We are not speaking on the same language. Like I said, it's like we have so many beautiful people in the party, but they don't talk to each other.
They have different interests.
Yeah.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. I think it's afternoon now. So, good day to our esteemed guests. So, here we have Prof. Dr. Shuhana, the President of Mereka Bandar. And we have on board also Associate Prof. Dr. Veronica, the Head of School of Architecture, Building and Design, and also the Director of the Livable Urban Communities Impact Lab in Taylor's University. And welcome to today's podcast hosted by me, Dr. Ungku Norani. So, my Townscape Program Coordinator, we are honoured to have you here with us today to discuss an exciting partnership between Malaysia Urban Design Association and Taylor's University Livable Urban Community Impact Labs and its impact on the future of the Malaysian townscape. So, without further ado, let's start by asking each of you, what with this partnership, how it came about. Perhaps Dr. Veronica, you would like to start off.
Thank you, Nora, and good afternoon. And hi, Prof. Shuhana. This partnership started off because in Taylor's University, we started the Impact Labs. So one of the Impact Labs in the university is actually called Livable Urban Communities, and currently I'm leading this lab. We are actually tasked to connect three important things within the umbrella of the university. So the first one is research, and universities are known to create research. We are a knowledge creator. But at the same time, the core business of the university is education, which is our students. And very often these two elements are not very connected unless it's a postgraduate study. And third is actually advocacy. Advocacy is not something natural to universities, but it's something that we would like to do, and we want to make a connection of these three things through the Impact Lab. So looking at these three different things, one immediate action that we needed to do was to have partners who have like-minded interests. Yeah, and in this particular sense, it will be to create a better quality of life for cities. So I hope I've answered your question.
That's wonderful to hear. Okay, Prof. Shuhana, perhaps you can share with us about what would you hope to achieve with this partnership.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This MOU that we are signing today with the Livable Urban Community Impact Lab is quite historic actually, because this is the first university that is formally signing a collaboration with the Malaysian Urban Design Association to become our strategic partner in implementing one of our flagship program, which is MyTownscape initiatives. I think I'll just spend a bit to explain what this MyTownscape initiatives is all about. Actually, I initiated this idea about a year ago to have a program where we can reach out to the community to get them to be interested and aware of their environment and what they can do to improve their quality of life through initiatives from us as an NGO, which is actually championing for good urban design, and with the expertise that we have in the association, to transfer the knowledge to the community, and so that we can actually start to get things happening on the ground. At the same time, as an NGO, we also want to create the awareness among the implementers or the urban managers or the planners that, Townscape is actually an important aspect that has to be given due consideration, because it is the one that reflect the quality of the urban environment and the appearance of the city that we are seeing today. what I noticed, what we have noticed for the past 30, 40, 50 years ago, things have not changed that much as far as the improvement of the quality of the design of the environment, although we can see quite significant changes in terms of the technology been applied, and we have seen quite significant changes in terms of the infrastructure being provided. But the car-centric environment that we are experiencing today is actually still making a what you call it, a direct impact to our quality of life, in the sense that we are still building cities revolving around the cars and the roads and the highways, and people-centric cities, which is actually the current trend and what the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations is actually hammering about, is still not taking place yet. We don't see the importance of designing cities to be people friendly, and also to actually reflect our culture, our heritage, our traditions, and our climate in the way we build our cities. So with this collaboration between Pereka Bandar and Taylor's University's Impact Lab, we hope to show how a smart partnership between the university, with their strength in research and their resources they have through their students and so forth, and for us as an NGO which champion for good urban design, and with the expertise we have, we can actually do something to make a direct impact on the people. So we are starting first with Taylor's University, reaching out to the community, and at the same time we also have to also thinking of doing collaborations with the local authorities to actually reach out to them. So what we are trying to do here at Pereka Bandar is to become the middle person to bring the communities and the authorities together, because only through collaboration, only through breaking the silo between the different groups, then only we can have a direct impact to improve our quality of life.
Oh, that's wonderful, Prof. Shuhana. So, coming from that point of view, Dr. Veronica, as the director of Livable Urban Communities, I thought that it would be wonderful to hear from you yourself. How do you perceive, or how would you define the livable urban communities from your personal perspective?
Personally, I grew up in an urban space, and most of the time in my childhood, I get to play along the streets, run around freely. I get to just go to my neighbors. Everyone was friendly, and people share a lot of things with neighbors. However, I don't see that in the current urban space. And people are beginning to segregate, beginning to alienate, and there are a lot of deterioration in terms of sense of belonging, as well as sense of attachment to a place. And when that disappears, people do not feel like they need to be in a place or contribute to a place. So that becomes an important theme for me, and as I cascade it to the Impact Lab, we actually broadened that and we focused on 5 key areas. So one of the first key areas that we focus on is called the socially inclusive spaces, and this is where the MyTownscape project is actually positioned. And the other aspect that we are also looking at is actually urban resilience for climate change. So there are many recent floods that it has impacted almost everyone nationwide, and even you hear of floods globally. So we are also integrating things related to flood management in the way we educate our students in the university within the Impact Lab. And the third one is on cultural heritage. So we need to protect and promote awareness to people where culture is actually important, both tangible and intangible culture. And we need to advocate for that so that people are educated to make a wise judgment about what to erase and what not to erase. And the fourth one is green and environmental space. So in the city, now we know that people are very stressful. And there are a lot of mental disorders among young, old, even people like us. And green spaces actually play a very significant role in maintaining human well-being. So that becomes one of the elements that we are also very interested in. And last but not least is, for the better side, creative and vibrant city. So we are looking at how to activate dormant spaces in the city so that we can create a happy city. And this is actually not appearing in the void. We are actually aligning all these different themes that we have in the lab to the SDG, particularly SDG 11, on sustainable cities and communities. And also we are aligning it to the Kuala Lumpur Cultural and Creative District Agenda by DBKL. So we wanted to get students connected to it, academicians contribute knowledge to it, and together we actually advocate for all these 5 different aspects. Yeah.
Wonderful to hear that. So Prof. Shuhana, I think coming from the perspective of a sense of neighborhood and the sense of belonging, and also I'm aware of the book that you written down on Townscape Revisited. Perhaps you could further expand on your point of view. Why is it important for us to ensure the presence of sense of belonging among the communities to residentials or within the city's perimeter?
Okay. If you look, I've been doing research about the cities that we have for the past 30 years when I was at university, and continuing to do so after that. One of the things I discovered that we used to build very sustainable places in the past, even though it was at the time, even before the country gained independence and when we were colonized by our British rulers, we managed to build small scale settlements, towns, which have character, which is actually responding to the climate. If you look at the colonial architecture, the kind of architecture we have at that time, we don't really need mechanical ventilation and so forth. And we were paying attention to the surrounding environment. I quote a good example is like our towns started off with the traditional shop houses, which is a building typology that is very sustainable because we have people living in the upper floors and working on the ground floors. There is no need for transportation. I mean, and the 5-foot walkway, which is actually incorporated in that kind of building typology, is actually an interesting public space that allow the transition. It's become a transition space that allow the intermingling between the pedestrians and the shopkeepers who are plying their trade. So this is some of the good things that we have done in the past. And before, being a country which is surrounded by water, as a peninsula, we are actually very much a water-based society. We build our settlements by the water bodies, either by the river, the estuaries, by the seaside. We used to have a good relationship with the water because at that time they were the main transportation mode of transport. But the independence, when the colonial masters came into the country, they also introduced a kind of town planning which gives some character to our cities. Where if you notice, most of the cities that was built during that time, they have a major urban space called the Padang, which is functioning as a major node. That actually provide the sense of unity in the whole urban form. And all the civic buildings are actually addressing the Padang, which actually makes it an important public space. But independence actually is a good thing when we finally be able to break away from the colonial masters. But it came with a price, because once you gain independence, then we are left on our own, to find our own identity, to find our own way of doing things. And the focus on economic development, the need to progress and so forth, make us in a way rush into doing things in the way we build our cities. So that's actually what prompted our cities to back the rivers, and also to when the when with the ice when we are starting you use have cars, automobiles as our land-based transportation, we start to back our water bodies, and we start to address the roads as if they were the most important part of our life. In fact, they become the main generator of urban form. So we start building our cities revolving around the roads and so forth. Instead of the roads become a means of transportation, it becomes the main generator of urban form. So you can see a very stereotype urban pattern emerging after that. And the water bodies like the river instead of becoming a means of transportation and an important public space, they become a means of utility lines. So you have all the utility lines and infrastructure lines, this the thing is very obvious in KL, where the two rivers, which is actually the genius loci. When I did the master plan, the heritage trade master plan for Kuala Lumpur, we identified the genius loci of KL is actually being influenced by the two rivers and the seven hills. That is actually where the city was built. But these important features that gives the spirit of the place, it's slowly been subdued, slowly been forgotten in the pace of, like our in the race of actually getting more and more developments to come in. So much so that this trend of building cities, this utilitarian approach, just to provide buildings to serve the purpose, has resulted in a very car-centric kind of environment. And even though we are now into the Sustainable Development Goals agenda of United Nations, where we want to have low carbon and stuff, we are still building more and more highways, that dissect the community, that cross over, that rip apart the cities. How do you get low carbon when you're still bringing in cars? You're still facilitating for that kind of movement. So this kind of approach is actually having an impact on the quality of environment, because instead of last time in the past, we were thinking about building a quality environment that minimize our dependence on the automobile. We're becoming so much dependent on the transportation that actually makes our cities not walkable. And walkability is very important, not just to for the sake of our health, but it's also to connect people. When you walk, you tend to engage with the environment. You experience the environment more rather than when you are driving. And the fact that we are focusing more on facilitating for the cars, it sort of shift the emphasis, rather than designing cities to create meaningful spaces for people to interact. We're building more and more roads and highways to accommodate for the cars. I'll stop at that, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We have been forgetting the human part for so long now. Now, I think this MyTownscape is actually to start people. Okay, now we have to actually give back to the people, their cities.
Yeah, I think people seldom walk in the city, and like what Jane Jacobs talk about modern cities, the death of the modern city, because everybody is in its comfort zone in an automobile, traveling around the city, and nobody even sees the river.
Yeah.
Like what you said, and it's
Because
so hard to get there.
Because hard to get there. Yeah, see.
Yes.
So in a way, the MyTownscape initiative is actually to give back the sense of pride and belonging of the people towards their city, and give back the human. And actually, what these initiatives are, we are inspired by what's happening in UK through their Townscape heritage initiatives and the Townscape rehabilitation scheme in Japan, where the authorities, work with the people to improve their streets, to improve their own neighborhoods, because they should be given their freedom to express their needs and so forth, but with guidance, so that there is a good design sense, but at the same time meeting their needs to personalize
Unity in
Huh?
diversity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unity within the diversity.
Yeah.
That's what this what we aspire to do here at Pereka Bandar, and we are so glad that Taylor's become the first university to collaborate with us, and we hope for more collaboration with
We are very
other
excited. Yes.
universities and also the local authorities. Yeah.
I think it's not brutal for me to declare that. It has been like discussed in few recent research paper that as much as 3 sustainable pillars is consists of equal weightage of environment, financial and social. Unfortunately, social factors has been disregarded quite brutally. So coming from that perspective, Dr. Veronica, in terms of architecture pedagogy, how do you think we are to ensure the future generations among our built environment specialists? How can we further nurture them to looking at the importance of designing for the peoples? How to humanize back again our cities?
I think the position of architecture as a discipline and as a profession is quite unique because it sits between art and science.
Science.
And sometimes, we are placed in science, sometimes we are placed in arts. In Malaysia, typically, they always like to put architecture in science. Yeah. And with that, it starts to look at the more technology, the more, I won't say inhumane, maybe less focus on the social aspects of the built environment. In Taylor's, although we are parked under the Faculty of Innovation and Technology, the focus of our program, there are also very strong elements of urban and social sciences elements to it. And in our design studios, we connect students to a lot of engagement with people, real people, to make the connection and to at least instill the awareness in them that at the end, people are the client.
Yeah.
The user are the client. So some of the teaching pedagogies that our school used is, of course, we have project-based learning. So each project looks at a certain issue and addresses the issue within the context. We are also beginning to look at purpose learning as a way to design our curriculum so that we also would like to bring the education through the students to act. We find that the youth actually have a lot of ambition, and especially with the current generation, they want to make a difference. So it's important to give them this space, a safe space with a certain curation of what they can do and what they cannot do, so that they have this space to work together with many different people. The academic team like ourselves, NGO like Pereka Bandar, even in some of our projects we have the local authorities and also actually anyone. So we are inclusive in working with different types of people, and we want to expose students that they, as an individual and as someone who is studying a program, say architecture, can actually make a difference, a real difference to people and places. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Also, Prof. Shuhana, coming from the Pereka Bandar 5 initiative of MyTownscape, how would you foresee the ability of MyTownscape initiative to further complement our present pedagogy in built environment?
Before I answer that, one thing that we realized, and one of the reasons why we set up this NGO is that I noticed that in Malaysia, urban design is not an important field or not an important aspect of city building. We are just focusing on either architecture or planning or construction of the infrastructure. Is the way I see it, our cities in Malaysia is like an orchestra without a conductor. So everybody is playing their music instrument. They play it well. I mean, we have very interesting, beautiful architecture, but or in the form of isolated individual buildings. But when you put them together, they don't talk to each other. So it's just like you have an orchestra where everybody play their own tune and beautifully, but what do you get?
No harmony.
Not in sync.
Yeah, not in
No,
sync.
we got noise, isn't it?
got-
It's
yeah.
not of a music. We got noise
It's not
because
harmony.
because they don't bother to coordinate and synchronize each other. So that is the kind of city we have now as a result of not paying attention to urban design. And until today, we don't see urban design is being given due consideration by the local authorities or even by the Plan Malaysia, the one who is actually governing all the planning activities in the country. I don't know why. Like I said in the past, Malaysia is a bit behind as far as the way we build our city. The if we compare to Singapore, I mean they're far ahead than us in giving quality to the kind of cities that they're building, the neighborhoods that they're created. Even Indonesia is also now focusing on urban design, to give character to their cities, because people come to a country. If you want the tourists to come to your country, they don't want to see shopping complexes that they have better in their place. They want to see cities, and you want to see the culture, the kind of settlement that built, which have their own local distinctiveness, local uniqueness, traditions that is still being intact. A good example is Bali. They have been successfully keeping to their culture, tradition for 1,000 years, hundreds of years. And why people go to Bali? Because of the strong identity of the Balinese culture that is still being adapted in their modern or contemporary development. Yeah, but for us, we used to have very good architecture or very good way of building cities. Like if you look at the traditional architecture in the past, it's so full of ornamentations, detailings, and a lot of focus on how to respond to the climate and so forth. But now, look at the way we build our cities now. It can be an anywhere, nowhere.
We just put air conditioning.
Yes, you can be in anywhere. You just take at random a a shot of any cities or any parts of the city. You can't even guess where you are. So this is what we call this anywhere, nowhere kind of cities that we have here in Malaysia. So why is my main concern is, why are we not concerned about our identity? Why are we not concerned about our rules and tradition, how we built cities in the past? Why are we lost in this race for progress? Because if you look at Italy, the way they have been protecting their urban environment cities, every inch of the city, they have kept and people go to Italy because they want to be part of the history, the heritage that they are protecting. But for us, what do? We demolish. We it's like we deleting the files that is relating to our culture and our tradition, which is actually sad. I think we are not being very sustainable in the way we build our cities because we are denying the future generation from learning about their past, from learning about who we are, who we were in the past. So I am not saying that you have to protect every inch of the heritage, but I am saying that you have to adapt. You have to actually allow for a good marriage between the old and the new, and so that we can actually give to the future generation an environment that do not deny them from learning about their own culture and traditions. So this the trend of actually demolishing the old fabrics, the trend of uprooting the existing communities is very dangerous, because once you get into gentrification, where we change the community that actually gives the character to the place, you'll be getting an like this, like anywhere nowhere kind of environment that we are going to pass to the future generation. They'll be cursing us, in the future, when they don't know, how when they don't have any identity and any
Distinctivity they can be very proud of, like Balinese you were mentioned,
Yeah.
or like the Italian that we were discussing. So I can summarize that, the making so much sense of the collaboration between the two. And I can see that the importance, the urgency of to ensure that in architecture pedagogy to emphasize over the characteristic of a place. How is the future architect should also further concern the built environment, the design field as a holistic discipline rather than one single building. I can see that how important it is now.
Because everybody has a role to play in city building,
correct.
you know.
Awareness among the players, among each consultant is also important. Like everyone should be speaking on the same language that we are going towards this direction.
That is the problem now. We are not speaking on the same language. Like I said, you know, it's like we have so many beautiful people in the party, but they don't talk to each other.
They have different interests.
yeah.
They have different.
Well, I think it's quite deep rooted. I mean, it goes back to probably the kind of society that we have. I noticed that in Malaysians, we are like a disposable society. We like something that is new, and then we can easily replace. You know, we can easily cut 100-year-old tree just within 1 hour, knowing that it takes 100 years for the tree to grow in that position. So this value, we have a problem with our value
So
system.
obviously it's a very bad value, I would say, among our societies.
I think it goes back to the education system. Anything when you
Tell
talk
us about it.
when you talk about culture, you cannot help from linking it to the education. You see, in UK, because my children started their schooling in UK. What do they do when the first day that they enroll school? Go plant trees with the mayor. And when they plant the trees in the city, the mayor, they were given the exposure of the importance of trees in the city, what the trees does, you know. Apart from just beautification, they also supply oxygen, making the city healthy and so forth. You know, see, this kind of education, informal education is very important because here in Malaysia, we are very exam oriented. You can't teach value system through exam.
It's through action learning.
Action learning.
Yes.
I mean, it's problem-based learning. I mean, you expose them to remember. Like in Japan, when you have all the school children, the primary school, they clean their own toilets. That's why the Japanese have
So
very
clean.
high standard
High
of hygiene.
yes.
Therefore, Prof, this is where I foresee the livable urban community impact like will make so much different in terms of architecture pedagogy, isn't it?
Yes, because we try to do the same, like bring the kids to plant a tree. I mean, similar conceptually, but I still agree with Prof. Shuhana where it should have started much earlier. And we are just doing our part, recognizing that there is this urgent need. And actually, we also felt that the youth wants to do more. And we have to create the platform for that. So through education, and it gives us a lot of opportunity as academics. It certainly redefined my role as academic because now one of the key things that I am in constant lookout for is where can I make a change? Who should I work with? And that becomes the agenda of how we want to educate students through the actions that they make to create a positive impact to the city.
I think the most important here is the beginning, you know, the kindergarten age.
Yes.
Because you can't, I mean, if you expose them at a university level, you know, they have already got...
they already shaped.
Yeah, they already have their own mind. They have already got their bad habits, throwing rubbish everywhere. So the preschool is the kindergarten. That is when you see, if you look at the developed countries, you know, during the preschool, they are not focusing on the learning alphabets or doing arithmetics. They are more exposed to creative kind of learning, you know, arts, crafts, and so forth.
Connection to nature.
Yeah, connection to nature.
Yeah.
Something that trigger innovation in doing things. They were taught to do cooking even at 4 years old, you know, so that they learn about, you know, the chemistry of things, you know.
I suppose they learn about life.
Yeah, they learn about life then. But our education system, we expose them to so early in the year exams, you know, your arithmetics, your alphabets, your spelling and so forth, that they don't have the chance to broaden up their horizon before they go to school. So it's all about exams, even until the university. So that's why I personally feel that we are not very sensitive to our environment. We, like I said, we don't feel guilty at demolishing heritage buildings which have been there for so long, which is part of the heritage of and we don't feel guilty, just tear them down and then build a utilitarian building just like a shoebox, with windows and doors to replace something that has actually got high aesthetic values and so forth. So it's not easy to change a mindset and a culture, but you have to start somewhere.
Yes,
You have to start somewhere. It takes 100 years for the culture to develop, but if you don't start somewhere, actually it's not a lost cause yet, but we're a bit late, to realize this.
So we are just doing a small part in our capacity as an education provider.
Even at Veronica Banda, as an NGO, like I said, our role now first is just to create this awareness. If people are not aware that there is something wrong, there is a problem with the way the quality environment, they will never demand for any improvement to be done. Once they know that, one of the things that we plan to do under this MyTownscape is to conduct workshops with the local communities. So this is where tailors, students can actually come in, where we can get the community to be aware of the good, the bad, and the ugly part of the environment, so that if you know something that is ugly and you realize it, then you will not create that kind of environment when they do their own renovation or when
you will say something about it.
Yes.
When you're aware that is an ugly part.
That's not ugly. But mind you, many people don't actually realize that some of the things they do to their house, their homes is ugly.
Yeah. I think
because
this
these values, there's something wrong with the value
actually
system.
boils down to public participation in
yeah.
our society, maybe in Asian culture, I'm not sure, but nobody participates in city building.
We are quite passive.
Yeah.
I remember when I was doing my PhD, my supervisor, my head of department said to me, "Shuhana, you are not a typical Malaysian." Yeah, because he's quite exposed to Malaysian. And why? You're very very British in your outlook. You speak your mind. You voice out what things you did. Because maybe because I was trained, I spent my time from A levels to PhD there, so I've been indoctrinated by the way the society is. But I think to be able to speak out, to be able to question your environment is very important. To be critical, but this critical thinking is something can sometimes viewed as very negative. Like I said, people always view people who are critical like, you are
the opposition.
you're troublemaker and so forth. Whereas you are just actually voicing, expressing your. Because if you don't express yourself, then you become a very docile society. And then whatever's being given to you, you just receiving, and then there's no improvement. When you don't know your problem, you never can improve. I remember one research that I've done in the past in Taiping. You remember Taiping has a very interesting colonial buildings, very beautiful architectures. One of the questions that we asked, what are the buildings that you show to people when they come to this town? They will say, they will mention these colonial buildings. And then we have a trap question at the end. What improvement do you want to see in this town? They said demolish all these buildings. So
how ironic.
That is ironic, but it also make me think, why do they mention buildings that gives the identity to the city are these heritage buildings, and why do they want these heritage buildings to be demolished?
I think it's a sense of attachment.
Then we have another question after that. That's why you have to be very creative when you design your questionnaire, so that we have to really ask questions that can actually catch them, if they come up with this kind of very contradicting answers. So the question that we follow up question after that, why do you want to see these buildings demolished? Then they will mention, because they are so dirty, they're so messy, ugly. So they are mentioning about upkeep and maintenance, but not about the quality. So the quality of the buildings gives identity, but because there is a poor upkeep, poor maintenance of these heritage buildings, then they want to see it demolished. So when I analyze this thing, then I realize, the reason why our cities are in this kind of situation is because we never do improvement that actually can make our old parts or the heritage parts or the parts where we have very good architecture, good townscape actually looks appealing to the people.
Yes, and we need to be innovative as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and some of these buildings cannot remain as it is for the future. There has to be some kind of adaptive reuse and so. So you have to be creative to transform some of these buildings.
Yes, what could it be, right?
What it could be. It can actually, that's what sustainable development is all about, you know.
Keeping the life of building,
embracing for the future.
through different phases.
But not to just demolish and build new. That's not sustainable because you are actually, like Intan was mentioning just now, there's 3 prongs of sustainable development: social, technology, environment. So you cannot say you'll be just focusing on one aspect. It has to be an integrated kind of
And
decision
then all
making.
3 has
To be equal
and
weightage.
has to be
Yeah.
wonderful, Prof. It's somehow we are echoing the words of Einstein through her level of citizen power, whereby the involvement of public in the future development is depicting the highest citizen power. So, and then it's very important in ensuring we are implementing the higher level of democratic governance in a way. So before we
I remember another research that I did where I benchmark the way we design the urban intervention in the historical and cultural places in Malaysia and what has been done in UK and US. I did interview the architects in one of the city, Durham, where they really keep all their heritage buildings is intact. They really control the design of new buildings so that they are in keeping with the character. They're not, I mean, like here in Malaysia, everybody try to outshow, everybody say, okay, look at me. This building say, look at me. So everybody wants to become a landmark. So in the end, you got a chaos. So I asked them, how did you manage to keep this city, free from very obtrusive kind of design or design that actually, they said it boils down to strong public voice. So what they did is that if there is any controversial development coming in, they will tell the community, look, there's this developer coming in, this ugly kind of, what do you think? So the public will just meet their local councillors, their politicians, and then protest about it. And then before the building could ever be brought into it
already killed.
So strong public voice is very important to make good cities as far as quality is concerned.
Yes. And hence public education and
it
awareness
goes back to
becomes
education and
important.
awareness.
Yeah.
That's why we, under MyTownscape initiatives, we are focusing on this awareness program.
Directly educating the public in this particular sense of knowledge towards a livable urban cities. Oh, okay. So before we end our sessions, I hope to hear, perhaps start with Dr. Veronica, last words, your hopes and aims for these partnerships. As I think we believe at this point, we agree that we somehow like supporting and echoing each other missions. Yes.
Of course, we hope to see that real change can happen, but changes take a long time. And we hope that this series of impact that we would like to see, we do it step by step, together, in a collaborative way, and we take action. I think more importantly to me is always the word action, because without action we make no difference. Yeah.
Exactly. How about you? So the hopes that you have.
I hope to my wishes, in my bucket list of wishes, I hope to see one day that we can have cities that we'll be proud of as nation. I hope to see cities where the townscape actually reflects our identity, our culture, our heritage, cities that actually meet the needs of the user, and at the same time, giving the future generation, some glimpses of what we used to have, the kind of environment we have in the past, for them to learn about themselves and about their roots and traditions. So, like I said, Perikabana cannot make instant changes. Our role is as an as an advocate for good urban design is actually to make some impact so that one day, Malaysian, the way we build our cities, the policies that we build will revolve around good urban design. Because at the moment, like I said, urban design is being left out from the policies, whatever discussion. Even though, mind you, in the new urban agenda, which is actually responding to sustainable development goal number 11 of sustainable cities, sustainable urban design is actually one of the means that needs to be taken to implement policies that will meet this. But somehow rather in Malaysia, they seems to forget about it. I think this is our challenge. Yeah, Pergamada, to get a sustainable urban design agenda to be formally accepted in the way we build and plan our cities in the future.
Wonderful, wonderful to hear that. Okay, I guess with that we will be ending our sessions. Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Shuhana and Associate Prof. Dr. Veronica for your time in participating in the podcast. And also I would like to thank to all the listener. Until next time. So look forward for more in the future of our collaborations. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.